Hi, thanks for joining me. My name is Frank, and today I want to be frank with you about leadership. Leadership, and you may be saying to yourself, I'm not a leader. I have nothing to do with being a leader. But I want to suggest to you today that if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, if you said yes to Jesus and made Him Lord of your life, and you desire to follow Him in all that you do, you are called to be a leader. Oswald Sanders and John Maxwell, in their leadership books, both use the term leadership and influence interchangeably. And I want to suggest to you that every time that I use the word leadership or influence, you could reverse or interchange those words. And if you are a follower of Jesus, I want to show you about biblical leadership today and want to start with a passage from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 13 through 16. This is Jesus speaking, and He's speaking to you, and He's speaking to me as followers of Jesus and about our leadership and our influence in the world. Listen to these words, verse 13 of Matthew 5. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Now, Jesus is using two very well-known things to the people of the day, and actually these two well-known things are in our lives today as well. The first one is salt, and we all know what salt is. We use it to flavor, and sometimes we use it to preserve. Maybe you've shaken that salt on your food, and I love salt. And sometimes my wife will say, "Why are you're salting your food before you even taste it?" And I tend to do that because I love that saltiness. It draws flavor out of whatever I shake it on. And the other thing is it preserves. And maybe you've had salted fish in the old days. And years ago, the fishermen would catch fish and they'd bring it into their hold on their big fishing boats, and they would put salt all over it to preserve it. So salt brings out other flavor profiles and it preserves. Well, Jesus is talking to us as people, and we preserve goodness and holiness in the world. And we bring out the good qualities of other people. We bring out good qualities in life. And see, if we are salt as a follower of Jesus, we flavor everyone around, and we preserve goodness and holiness, and we make things useful. I want to suggest to you that's influence. If you're influencing people, if you're salt wherever you are, you're adding flavor, and you're preserving goodness wherever you are. Now, the second thing that Jesus uses in these few verses to compare us to is light. And you know that light illuminates whatever it's around. We all love houses full of light. Have you ever watched one of those home shopping shows on television where people are shopping for houses? And one of the things the host will always point out is, look at how light and airy this house is. Look at the natural light coming in. We all love houses with lots of light. It improves our mood. Light is encouraging. Light usually brings about happiness. It discourages evil. Have you noticed that security lights shine in the darkness? It discourages evil. It keeps thieves away. It discourages people from loitering, those kinds of things. And what Jesus is talking about for our lives, for my life and your life, is that we are like light to people around. We shine Jesus' love all around us. Wherever we are, we shine that out to others, and we illuminate. So you see, if we illuminate, and if we flavor and preserve, we are influencing people all around us. And if you are a follower of Jesus and I'm a follower of Jesus, we are salt and light wherever we are. And you know, it really doesn't make any difference who you are or where you go. You have influence. By having influence, you have leadership as you're in those environments. If you're a stay-at-home dad or a mom, if you're an engineer, if you're a doctor, a builder, a landscaper, or a CEO, you have influence. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, can you expand on that and show me how I have influence wherever I am? I'm so glad you asked. Yes, I will. Let's first start at home. In your home or your family. You know, you influence, if you're married, you have influence on your spouse. You speak words to each other. You can either be encouraging or discouraging. Those words will influence the other person in a positive or negative way. If you have children, the same thing applies. Now, if you have children, there's another piece of the puzzle that's at work. It's how you act as well as what you say. Do you know, most things that we pick up are caught rather than taught. Let me say that again. Most things that we pick up and learn are caught rather than taught. Now, remember when you were a child and you might have learned how to play baseball. You probably watched a lot of people playing baseball. You knew how to run the bases, probably because you saw somebody else do that. Maybe you learned how to hold a baseball or a softball bat and you knew how to swing it because you were watching people. You catch on to things, and then some things, maybe like swimming, you actually took lessons and you were taught how to swim. But if you have kids, they are tuning into the way you act every day. As a matter of fact, if you're a mom or a dad, your kids are modeling what you do and what you say all the time. And maybe you've had this experience where you heard your child say something or do something that you'd rather not they say or do. And you realize, oh, they picked that up from me. Because, you see, lessons are caught and taught. So you're influencing your spouse. You're influencing your children. If you're a sibling, you're constantly relating with your brothers and sisters. Now, as an adult, I have 2 sisters and I interact with them. We're still influencing each other in the way that we communicate and what we communicate. Maybe you have, maybe you're younger and you have older, and your parents are obviously older, but you influence your parents as well. How you react when you're at their home, how you react when they call you or you interact with them, and you relate to them, you influence them. You might even be leading them in a variety of different ways. Maybe you have a roommate and you're sharing the rent and you're paying the bills with that person. How you act and interact influences that roommate. So home and family, a big place. Well, what about work? We have coworkers, and maybe how hard you work or how hard you don't work on a particular day affects your coworkers, or you might be a boss, or you might have a boss, and you're interacting and you're influencing that person. If you're a boss, you have direct reports, people who work for you, and how you do your job evaluations of your direct reports. Very, very important way to influence others and be salt and light as a follower of Jesus in those situations. Or if you're an owner of a business, you're impacting everyone in that business, everyone who works for you. Or on the flip side, you may have the owners of the business that you work for be on site, and you're influencing them by your good work habits, by the fact that you show up on time every day, that you hit all of your marks on time, those kinds of things. You see, we're influencing people at home and in our family, and we're influencing people at work all the time. What about your leisure activities? Maybe you go to a gym or you're a member of a team. The same things apply. By the way, sports, if you're a member of a team, a softball team, a golf team, maybe you play competitive tennis, whatever it is, it's a great place to be salt and light. Sometimes it's a very challenging place to be a follower of Jesus, because sometimes we get angry while we play sports, or sometimes we feel like a rule has not been applied in a fair manner against us and we complain. And sometimes we have to be very, very careful about how we influence others, because you see, influence can either be positive or it can be negative. It's always that way in every environment. But you're influencing people at the gym, you're influencing people on the tennis court, you're influencing people on when you go hunting with them or when you go fishing with them. It all applies, because we're always in a position to influence. What about church? You may be a servant, volunteer at church, and how you serve and how you take your responsibility seriously will influence other people. You may be a leader, and you may be calling people who are volunteers and servants to work with you and for you. How you lead them, how you influence them, what you say, how you perform your tasks, very, very important. And you know, as a church attendee or as a church leader, you also affect the pastor at your church too. How you react to the things the pastor says. Are you encouraging or discouraging? Do you think the music's too loud? Do you think the lights are too bright? Do you think things are too sedate? How you deal with those things show your leadership, show your influence. Are you a positive or negative influence? And then lastly, I want to bring up commerce and business. You know, I love good coffee. What kind of person am I when I go in and pick up my coffee? Or maybe when the coffee that I get is not delivered to me at the right temperature or with the right add-ins, there. How do I react to that? Am I a positive influencer or am I a negative? What's my leadership style when I show up at Starbucks? What about at a restaurant? Or am I a good tipper when I receive good service? And I want to tell you, if you're a follower of Jesus, you should be the best tipper going. The servers are trying to make money. They're paid way less than minimum wage. And if you are well served, you should reward that person because you're influencing them. And ultimately, the way we act in all of these environments, family, work, leisure, church, commerce environments, they all speak to the person that we follow, Jesus. What do we want to be known for? I'm reminded of a story about a Starbucks that I used to frequent. There was a person that was at my church who never really seemed to be happy. And then I was listening to a story one time from a barista from a local Starbucks. And she was saying, we've got this one guy that comes in Starbucks all the time and nobody wants to wait on him. We call him Mr. Nasty because he's never happy and he's always grumpy and he never leaves a tip and nothing is ever right. And she said, when we're training a new barista and Mr. Nasty comes in, he comes in every day, we always make the new barista wait on him because it's an experience to have. I met this barista at church one day and I was talking with her and I had already known this story. And then she got this look on her face and she said, there he is. And she points across the church. I said, there, who is? And she said, that's Mr. Nasty. Do you know he was a guy that went to our church and he was in a leadership position at church. And outside the church, he's known as Mr. Nasty. You see, what are you known for outside of church or outside of work? How do we influence others? You see, we all have influence, and leadership is influence. So I want to ask you today, as we wrap up this session, because we all influence each other, let's influence and lead well today in all of our environments, at home, at work, in leisure, at church, and in commerce. Because we are called to be salt and light, let's lead well. Let's influence others well today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for letting me be frank with you. See you next time.